how many downloads of Jim and Bill It's Another Day podcast?
Today, the podcast show has fetched 400 million downloads since its start, and an average of 350,000 downloads per episode, about 3.9 million downloads per week.
Well, hello there. It's another day. I'm Jim Harrington.
And I am Bill Knight. Happy Friday as we get set to slide into the weekend.
Oh, yes. And it's going to be an interesting weekend. It always is. By the way, Kash Patel got in. He's the new FBI director. I was watching the count. Of course, we had a couple of rhinos, people who you never can count on, and they proved themselves to be rhinos yesterday. Susan Collins.
47. Yeah, well, yeah.
And Lisa Murkowski from Alaska. So other than that, he got his appointment, and now he's the head of the FBI. And it was interesting. He went... he went right to business, apparently. He thanked President Trump for, allowing him the opportunity to be the director of the FBI. Here's what he said. He said, "I'm honored to be confirmed as the 9th director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Thank you to President Trump and Attorney General Bondi for your unwavering confidence and support. The FBI has a storied legacy, from the G-Men to safeguarding our nation in the wake of 9/11. The American people deserve an FBI that is transparent, accountable, and committed to justice. The politicization of our justice system has eroded public trust, but that ends today. My mission as director is clear. Let good cops be cops and rebuild trust in the FBI. Working alongside the dedicated men and women of the Bureau and our partners we will rebuild the FBI the American people can be proud of. And to those who seek to harm Americans, consider this your warning. We will hunt you down in every corner of the planet. Mission first, America always. Let's get to work." That was from Kash Patel. So I think he's serious, and that came out like within an hour, I guess, of his appointment. So he's serious. And I would imagine people over at the FBI are a little on edge this morning because...
he hit the ground running, and they're not going to like this.
Nope. I think he's about to take names, and he'll make a difference. He really will. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be business as usual at the FBI. There are some people who have been playing games for the past 4 years with their power, who I would be willing to bet won't be working for the FBI in the coming days. There'll be changes made. But it was interesting. I wanted to play these cuts about, I guess, an hour and a half before, maybe 2 hours before the vote. Adam Schiff and Sheldon Whitehouse, they went out in front of the FBI building. Now, we talked about how when you pull back on a wide shot, there's nobody there.
I was just going to say, they had a crowd of nobody.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a very good way of describing it. Really, they had a party and nobody showed up. Here's Sheldon Whitehouse. He's from Rhode Island, and he doesn't like Kash Patel.
Judiciary Committee, what crimes it was that he was concerned about that caused him to plead the Fifth. Kash Patel, mark my words, will cause evil in this building behind us, and Republicans who vote for him will rue that day.
He did a whole presentation on the floor of the Senate about Kash Patel pleading the Fifth. And he made it sound like it was illegal for him to plead the Fifth. That's a safeguard. Pleading the Fifth is a safeguard. It's a protection for the common citizen who appears to feels like they're being railroaded. They're being pushed into a criminal situation. And this clown, this Sheldon Whitehouse, who thinks he's his number one fan, folks. If you've never seen this guy, he's insufferable. I'm sorry. And he was he was trying his best to bring down Patel. But also, Adam Schiff now, when you listen to Adam Schiff, understand something. A lot of the experts believe that Schiff knows that if Patel gets into office, all bets are off. That, as Sherlock Holmes used to say, the game's afoot, and they'll be going after what's his face, Adam Schiff. What's his face?
That's a good name for him.
Yes.
Oh, what's his face? Adam.
Here's what Schiff said in front of the FBI building before the vote yesterday.
This is someone we cannot trust. This is someone who lacks the character to do this job, someone who lacks the integrity to do this job. We know that. Our Republican colleagues know that. The only qualification Kash Patel has to be FBI director is that when everyone else in the first Trump administration said, no, I won't do that, that crosses moral, ethical, and legal lines, Kash Patel said, sign me up. In the first Trump administration, as we are seeing in the second, you rise to the level of your sycophancy, and no one is a bigger or more dangerous sycophant than Kash Patel. This political hack does not deserve to be in this building. He can't do the job. He won't protect the public. He will misuse the resources of the Bureau. He will weaponize it against the president's political opponents rather than protecting the safety, the public safety of the American people. We will vote no. Our Republican colleagues, intimidated by this president and threats of primary challenges from MAGA world, may vote to confirm him. But as my colleagues have said, they will have to live with that vote, be accountable for that vote, and be accountable for all the destruction that Patel does to this premier law enforcement agency. Us Democratic members of this Judiciary Committee, stand shoulder to shoulder with the professionals in the FBI, with law enforcement everywhere, and we wish our colleagues would do the same. And with that, let me...
Unbelievable. This guy has got the gonads of King Kong, all right? For him to stand there with a straight face, this is probably one of the most corrupt politicians, I believe, in Washington. Adam Schiff, who... Do you remember the hearing, Bill, during the first administration when they were trying to do that Russia hoax on President Trump? And this guy started reading something as if it were dialogue.
Fact, and it was not.
And it was something he made up.
Look, I think he sits at his desk with a mirror in front of him, and he's writing to himself about him. But what I heard there was them doing a pep rally to nobody, but they were threats, So for whatever their base is out there, that was for them. And those threats that they're saying, you're going to rule the day. Well, okay, why am I going to rule the day? Why don't you just tell me what it is that you've got up your sleeve? Because you guys are conniving. You're just sitting out there throwing idle threats. Grow a set and just tell us what you're going to do.
This is a guy who, I don't know, maybe, I don't. I think he's afraid that if people with character, people who actually keep their word, who are honest, get into positions of power, they're going to find out just how corrupt, just what this guy's been up to, guys like Adam Schiff. And understand something. These two guys you just heard, Whitehouse and Schiff, they both, at the time Schiff was a representative, but they both approved of guys like Sam Brinton or Sam Pete Buttigieg, Mr. Potholes himself. They approved of the most incompetent people. Rachel Levine, I got to tell you, folks, I don't care what you think about transgenders and stuff like that. That's your business. But there's a certain decorum and respect for the position that you have to take into consideration that these clowns don't ever consider. Rachel Levine, are you telling me that there weren't thousands, millions of other great doctors out there, qualified, distinguished people who would that part of the controversy would never be an issue, meaning the transgender part. They would just be great medical people who would have been able to do the job. But no, the left had to make a another political statement. They had to stick this embarrassment into a position of authority and decency, almost an affront to the American people. No. I hear guys like Schiff and Whitehouse talking about Kash Patel. Patel is an honest, reputable, decent man with real solid core values, and this protest from the left, they had the right amount of people watching that protest. None.
Nobody except for the lefty news. That was all that was out there. Pete, you mentioned Pete. Now, I guess Pete is considering, he's got a dilemma, that he's going, should I run for the Senate or do I want to run for president?
Well, I think Pete should. I don't think running for dog catcher would be a success. He didn't run for his last position. It was given to him. He was appointed. Being the mayor of what was it, South Bend, Indiana, or something like that. I mean, I can't believe they actually voted the guy in. I think he came out of the closet after he was mayor. I don't think he was. I could be wrong.
Well, he looked like the all-American boy. Oh, he's a sweet young man. Yeah, you know what? He's wholesome. We ought to give him a shot.
Got to bring him home to mom and dad.
Yeah, I don't care about his affinity to be what he is.
That's his business.
That's his business. But he's made it our business, and that's where I draw the line.
Well, you know what? Look at there are and have been people of different sexual persuasions in government since the days of the Romans. Okay, there have been, but for the most part, they've kept it private. I know of one gentleman in government right now, a strong confidant of President Trump. Actually, there's two. There was one that was just appointed to a secretary position. I forgot what his name was, but he was just appointed. There are two gay men who are in this administration, and the difference is it's not their defining characteristic. You know what I'm saying? That's a part of what they are, but they're intelligent people. They're honest people. They're strong Americans. They're patriotic. All of the other qualifications. They don't carry that part of their life and hold that like a flag. It's a part of who they are. Do you know what I'm saying, Bill?
But there's levels as to a part of you. You're a heterosexual, but okay. But let's just say that you're full into whatever it is that you do. That you got to see. You got to let everybody know. Your business is your business. Now, as far as Pete goes, the fact that he's very public about it, there are countries that he would be dealing with if he were to get into the office some way, somehow, that, have religious values that he doesn't have. And they also have sexual values that he doesn't have, where they would sit there and they would look at him in a very negative light and not do anything that he's wanting to say. We need to work on this. Yeah, you go ahead and work on it by yourself. All right, they'll have nothing to do with this.
I think the difference between the left and the right is that the right doesn't use their sexuality as their defining part of their life. The left does. The most important thing about Pete Buttigieg was that he was a gay man, and he flaunted it. He liked it to be his defining characteristic. Whereas
because they want to say that everybody is gay, or the majority of people are, and not only here but around the world.
Well, I think that they're running into a lot of problems right now on the left, big time. I don't know whether they're going to have much success in any election in the near future, because let me tell you what they're talking about right now. This administration. We're moving on a little bit here, but we're still in the same ballpark. They're talking. President Trump tested the idea of giving $5,000 to every taxpayer in the country. He spoke about it, I believe, at one of his speeches in Florida, I believe, the day before yesterday, and people loved it. They loved the idea of getting $5,000, and I guess he mentioned it again yesterday. So it's a real consideration. And I was thinking, what's going to happen is he's going to be able to save so much money. By the way, that would only represent 20% of the savings that Doge is finding, meaning in order for us to get $5,000, we would have to have found and recovered, well, I guess, well over $1 trillion. And apparently we're on target to doing just that. But, if he starts handing out $5,000 checks, and there's another story, Bill, you're going to love. They're talking about getting rid of the IRS.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying, well, how are they going to generate money? Well, he's going to replace it with the External Revenue Service.
Yeah,
make money from tariffs and other things that come into the country, not from the people who are already here.
What would happen if we got to a point to where we had no taxes and we became a source again for products? We're big. We have a lot of resources. We have a lot of talent here. We have talent of all kinds of different sexes, different colors, different races. We have a lot of natural resources. We can produce and sell our goods. What if we got so good at that, which once upon a time in this land, if you do your research, that's how we did make our money. But let's say that we got so good at it to where, you're talking about $5,000 that you would get a dividend here or there.
I was thinking as you were saying that, there was a time in the early 20th century, or end of the 19th century, early 20th century, where we started to have all of these amazing inventors show up on our doorstep. People like Nikola Tesla, Thomas Alva Edison, Alexander Graham Bell, all these guys. And here was the thing, though. These people, they became successful and reaped the benefits of their inventions. They became wealthy because of their individual intellect. Then during the 20th century, somewhere along the lines, these big corporations came along and gobbled up all these great minds and gave them a nice income. But they didn't give them that incredible incentive. You know what I'm saying? The companies, by having all of these great minds working for like IBM or Xerox or whatever, RCA, all of a sudden you didn't have a landscape filled with great inventors anymore. But I was reading a story about Elon Musk's success. Yeah, he's a character. He's eccentric. He's a genius, folks, because what he's doing internally at X, from what I understand, is he's giving these employees those incredible incentives again, internally. It's a corporation where he'll set goals like, I want to land on Mars. Can you figure out how to get from point A to point B? And the first team that does that gets this incentive. It'll be some kind of massive incentive where they can reap their reward, whereas corporations lost that incentive thing back in the mid-20th century. You became an employee, and all of a sudden you were working on a team, and you weren't the great inventor anymore. Does that make sense, Bill? What I'm saying is that...
Well, it does, because I worked at a company one time. We were brand new. It was in Memphis. And, we were, when I say brand new, we took an existing radio station, beautiful music, turned it into a country station. It's a big time, still their country station. The company that did it is no longer there, but they sat there and they said, okay, in the first month, we want to hit the ground running and make a lot of money. They had a great sales staff, but nobody really was giving us, the credit that was due. So they came in with a deal that sat there and said, okay, everybody is on a team. We had 2 teams, and it was divided by sales, programming, management, everybody. And it's whatever you could do for your team to sit there and help develop sales. You saw a store, you were at a donut shop and you talked to the guy, hey, I'm with the new so-and-so radio station. Here's my card, or, whatever. And it generated money. Now, the deal was, for the first $100,000 that we made that month, everybody would get a $100 bill. Now, if you were on the team that generated the most, you got an extra 50. And so we did that. Well, in the first month, instead of generating the goal of 100,000, we generated a little over 400,000. And all of a sudden, it took off. and it just grew and grew and grew. And after 3 months, they're going, okay, this is getting a little ridiculous. We're not going to do this anymore because we were overproducing. But, well, you can't overproduce. Sales is sales. Any salesperson knows that. But, it went nuts. And it's because everybody had incentive. There was a goal there. And,
that's what Musk is doing, Bill.
Yeah.
Musk is doing that with his company. He gives his employees incentives. You can hear it. If you ever watched one of the launchings of one of his missiles, we when I was younger, we'd hear these launchings, and it'd be D-8. There was no personality to it. Now, the people who describe Elon Musk's launch, it's like watching a TV show. They're relaxed, and so has such and such, and it's a beautiful day, and he seemed very calm getting into the. There is a different approach to just about everything in this guy's businesses, and that by itself is genius. He's giving his employees motivation and a reason to be the best that they can be, and I think that's what's happening. You have to ask yourself, how do all these Doge employees, how long have they been doing this? Yet they seem to go into a business, and in no time they find exactly what's wrong with it. I think it's because there's first of all, they're geniuses. He hired only the smartest brains, but they go in there and they know exactly where to look and what to look for. There are certain key things, I would imagine, in every division, in every department that are similar. How much was budgeted for this? How much did you spend? I'm not an accountant, and believe me, for me to start getting into math, people who know me they'd cringe. But the fact of the matter is that these guys, they've gone into these businesses and they tear them apart in no time. Bill, right now, I think they're in the Department of Defense. They're in the Pentagon, screwing around in the Pentagon, and also they're going over to the CIA if they're not already there.
Speaking of the Pentagon and the Department of Defense, you remember the aircraft carrier about a week ago that hit a merchant ship?
Yes.
And did severe damage to it, and it's now being repaired. And everybody, all the lefties are going to say, hey, Trump takes over, and look what happens. Boy, are we exposed. Look at that ship and all of that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the captain was relieved of his duty. And, a lot of captains that had only had the position for a year, which he was appointed in 2023 under the Biden administration, he gave an order and he hit a merchant ship when there was nothing around.
How do you do that, Bill? I mean, it's a big ocean out there. You have to kind of aim, don't you?
Sonar, the radar, everything was intact. The helmsman was not drunk or high on drugs. It came from the order of the captain, who was sitting there very pristine. He said, "Go right," and he did.
You know what one of the guys said?
What a maroon! What an ignoramus! What a tararagoondier!
I had to do that, Bill. I'm sorry. It just fit. The guy was a jerk to take an aircraft carrier and to hit a cargo ship in the middle of the ocean. There was
nothing around, so you had to have your head up your arse, to sit there and do something like that. And I'm sure the helmsman, if he was looking, or somebody on radar, Captain, you can't do it.
Yes,
I'm in charge here. That's why I'm the captain. See these here stripes?
Yeah,
that makes me the captain. We hit what?
Bill, I would think nowadays, like everything else, is recordings of everything. The decisions that are being made in the up there at the helm, they're all being made with video running. So they all probably have some kind of a black box.
Well, if you recall, over the past several years, basically during the Biden administration, this guy was a carryover from that. How he got there, I don't know. But his background didn't indicate that he should have been the commander of a aircraft carrier, the biggest vessel on the planet. And
you say it was a lot of damage too, right? I mean, this.
Well, there were the ship actually was still seaworthy. The nuclear engines were intact, the catapults were intact, but there's a part that hangs out on, I guess, the one side that has to do with the main deck. and it was damaged. But the thing I noticed about that ship, I mean, they get rust in the water. It's the Truman. It's an older ship, but they ought to go ahead and take it and say, guys, you get some shore leave. We're going to go ahead and repair that.
Yeah.
And we're going to scrub this scow down and put some new electronics in it and make this a pristine baby. But then again,
and that happened over in the Middle East, right? Am I correct?
Yeah, it happened a week ago.
So what do? They had to take it back to Virginia, to Norfolk?
No, I think no. They got port of calls all over the place. So it went to the nearest port where they have
shipyard somewhere.
The shipyards, where they can repair it. I'm sure that we're paying a non-American shipyard, for the repairs and all of that.
Yeah, wow.
And everybody worries about top secret stuff. When we repair our ships somewhere else, do you not think that they have people that may not be so vetted that get to see sensitive hardware?
Something like this, I want to say it happened in New Zealand about 6 months ago. In New Zealand, I think they had like one huge brand new ship that they were so proud of, and they put a DEI type person in charge of the ship, and within a relatively short period of time she sank it. She sank it, and I could be wrong. This is coming off memory, but she was I guess that the people were really ticked off, and I want to say it was New Zealand, not Australia, but they only had so many ships like this in their navy, and now they're one short, and it will take them like years to replace it because it was so expensive and so high tech. But this is the problem that you have when you put people in a position that shouldn't be in that position. Now, for example, this Delta Airlines crash up in Toronto. First, they said it was, an all DEI crew. Well, I've heard that's not correct. I heard the captain was experienced. The second in command, though, and I'm not going to say I don't know the facts, and there's been no judgment yet, but they seem to indicate that she was really new at her job, and might have been. There's something. There's a license that you get where you need 1,500 hours, but you can get a subordinate license to that, like a temporary license with 1,000 hours, and she had that, and she had that for like a year, and that was the surprising thing, is that she was in that subordinate role. She should have had the other 500 hours, in the course of a year, but she didn't have them. You have to ask yourself why.
Well, now, it's funny you should mention that because I mentioned it before. You talked about that helicopter that went down and the DEI, and they scrubbed the girl's background, and it turns out, well, okay, so she had a lady girlfriend, and was intimate with. Okay, that's fine. That's her thing. But they were like, well, she's qualified. She had over 400 hours. And I'm going like, no. We have taken the levels of achievement that you have to get to. We've lowered that bar.
Yes.
To be the commander of that ship, there has to be a little bit of salt in the water. There has to be some seasoning.
You're absolutely correct. Like that 1,500 hour limit minimum, they lowered it so they could have lesser qualified people riding in the right seat as the the first officer, and that's wrong. You have the lives of people. When you start screwing around with situations where innocent people rely on your qualifications, you can't start playing games with DEI and stuff like that. That has no business, for example, in a cockpit or on a ship's bridge. It just doesn't, because there's too much at stake. It's not individual safety, it's group safety.
Right. Now, look, if you're going to take DEI people and say, no, they've got to be able to be in command, okay, that's fine. But they got to go to the back of the line and work their way through like everybody else, do all the courses, do all the studying, do all the training, do all the flight safety rules, everything, and get all the accreditations. And then once they do what has been the norm for years, then their DEI has nothing to do with anything, they are a qualified candidate.
Yes, absolutely.
Period. End of discussion. They're there, and nobody has anything to say because they know what they're doing. And that's all that matters.
And, speaking of knowing what you're doing, the guys who put our coffee together, Jim and Bill's
they know
Right
what
Side,
they're doing.
They really do know what they're doing. I mean, these are not some ham and eggers who just, let's make some coffee. No, these are guys, they know what a good bean looks like. They know how to put it together and package it properly. And that's exactly what they've done with Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee. It's a medium blend roast and a medium decaf blend roast. We have both versions. That'll keep you smiling in the morning. It'll make you feel good. You get out of bed. No one feels good getting out of bed. I mean, the bed is comfortable. It's cool. You don't want to get out of bed. So when you swing your legs over, it's like, I don't want to do this. When you have a cup of Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee, everything's right with the world. Really. It
gets you percolating.
It does indeed. You got to get up and try some Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee. You're saying, no, look I would, Jim, but you haven't told me where I can buy it. I'll tell you where you can buy it. You can buy it online at rightsideshop.com, rightsideshop.com, and that's where you'll find it, rightsideshop.com. Now, if you can't remember that, go to it'sanotherday.com, and we have a button. You press that little button, Right Side Shop, and there you are. You're right there. And you'll have it on your doorstep before you know it, and you'll be drinking it before you know it. It'll be a well-spent few bucks, and you'll be telling your friends about it. I found this secret coffee that's really good. You got to try it. It's not just some ultra-ran coffee. It's a delicious blend of coffee, and I wouldn't say it if it wasn't true. We also have, by the way, Juan Jose and the Border Crossers here to sing the jingle.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
Oh, they do such a nice job. Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee. Try some today. You won't regret it. Bill, you probably heard this story. It was in the news yesterday, big story. Sad story. They released some bodies, Hamas did, to the Israelis. It was two little babies. God bless them. They were the cutest little babies, two beautiful little babies, and a very young mother with her whole future ahead. She was so proud of her children. I think she was 31 years old. The babies were like 9 months and 4. They were it was like a picture perfect family, and they were gone because of Hamas and because of their villainous way of approaching the world. By the way, there was also an 84-year-old gentleman who his body was also released too. But the thing that gets me is, I don't know whether people heard this, but they released the caskets of these victims, and they didn't send the right keys. Did you hear that? They did not send the right keys for the casket. So they couldn't open the coffins to see whether the bodies were, I mean, they got them open eventually, but they were doing everything they can to throw a monkey wrench into it. And when they opened it, now, I haven't seen this in the news this morning. I would have thought it would have been a big story. Maybe the story's wrong. But if my information is correct from yesterday, when they opened the body of the young woman, it wasn't the mother. The two babies were the right babies, but it wasn't the mother of the babies.
Because they probably took the corpses and just threw them into a room, and they have no clue as to who or what they have. But my question is, do they have any live hostages?
Bill, I think that's a fair question, and I don't know. I don't know.
Because I would halt all releases of prisoners, and if they go, well, this is going to be a problem, say, it already is a problem. It's elevated to the level, yes, we would like the bodies back so that people can mourn, but you're playing the game, and the game is done. So now this is me, and maybe I'm a hothead, but I would sit there and say, you are going to give us everything, dead or alive, but a complete accounting. This is it. If you want even a snowball's chance in hell of getting your comrades even a chance to get them back, and if you don't take that deal, that's fine. You will join the deceased. We will introduce you to it immediately.
And here's the problem. I don't know how, President Trump came up with an idea, and it seemed like an interesting, fair idea about how he would move the Palestinian people out of Gaza and how they would take it over and clean it up and get rid of the bombs and the rubble and stuff and build it into this beautiful showplace. And I thought it's a great idea, but the problem they have is the Palestinian people. The Palestinian people, for the most part, have been brainwashed. I mean, they voted in Hamas. They voted in Hamas. They actually went down, raised their pens and whatever they did. They voted for these people to be their governing party. And so I saw them, there's a picture of them presenting the caskets in public yesterday before they transferred the bodies. And the crowds were cheering and clapping, and they were singing songs, almost mocking these little babies who were so tragically murdered by these vile animals. And you have to ask yourself, are these Palestinians redeemable? I mean, can you straighten these people out, or are they beyond redemption? I mean, these were thousands of people who were just clapping and cheering the deaths of these little Jewish babies. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I've got a problem with that whole thing, and you're right. They did vote him in, and so they made their bed. They're lying in it. It's not our say. I mean, it was a great solution from Trump, and I think he should leave it on the table. But
when do you move them? I didn't realize this, but they moved some Palestinians back in 1973 to Egypt. And apparently, and I forgot the name of it was called. There was a name of it, a war. The Palestinians in Egypt started to rise up against the Egyptian government. They wanted to take over Egypt. So what do you do? Where do you move these people if they're terrorists by nature? If they're a breeding ground for this vile lifestyle, are they not just spreading the cancer by moving them into other countries?
Yeah, you got a difficult situation there because genocide is not going to be the answer to that. And where these people are, I don't know. But where they are seated right now, in the middle between the two, it's a festering ground for them. It's almost like we need to find a place, almost like
Put them on an
Australia.
island somewhere.
like Australia. That was a desolate place. And that's where the England dropped all their varmint, their prisoners, but they turned it into a beautiful place and a great country.
It was a debtor's island. It's exactly they thought it was a punishment. We're sending you to Australia. Now they have people who vacation there. It's a different world. But
maybe that's what they need. Maybe they need to have something that is theirs, that's all theirs by themselves. They're given the basics to get things going, and it's up to them to take it from there.
Well, I don't have an answer. I've thought about it many times. I don't know whether there's a logical, humane way of dealing with this. I've heard other people. I heard Mark Levin yesterday. Mark Levin, I think his answer is blow him to hell, and I don't know whether that's something I can get on board with. I'm sorry. I think if you're a smart, intelligent, or civilized person, I think there's got to be. I think you just threw out an idea that nobody's talked about. Is there an island somewhere big enough to put these people on and say, all right, this is your country. You can have
and
this.
Help them out a little bit.
Yeah, we'll build you up. We'll give you some infrastructure. We'll give you a town. And you can start
communication, media. But you go to town, and then we're happy to see you grow and foster.
But we're also happy to see you go.
Yeah, and if they turn into something, if they stay evil, because that's where Levin's coming from. They've never done anything but be vile, like you said.
Right.
It's a festering ground. So his attitude is, I'm done with it. I can't do it anymore. And it's like being in. I remember a kid, ironically, his name was Ronnie Reagan. but not the Ronald Reagan. He would be still alive. Well, probably is. But either way, I mean, this kid was a bully, and he kept, coming up and punching and trying to do stuff. And one day I just turned around and I looked at him, and he threw a punch, and I knocked him the hell out. And that was the end of that. I had enough of him.
Well, that's probably how a lot of people in Israel feel right now. A lot of Jewish people around the world. Maybe that's why Mark Levin feels the way he feels.
Enough is enough, and you're going to sit there and answer that call. And
but I think your idea was actually pretty good. There's got to be an island somewhere that's basically uninhabited, that can be cleaned up and given something. I mean, if you saw the mess that Gaza is right now, you probably have. If you're listening to this show, you pay attention to politics and you probably pay attention to the news. You probably have seen the pictures of the rubble. I mean, I'm talking miles upon miles of tons of rubble. These people can't go back there. There's nothing to go back to.
No.
They showed some people, Bill, who were trying to live in the rubble. It's ridiculous. They're living on, underneath partially blown down roofs and stuff like that. And I'm sure the sanitation issues are abysmal, and they've got to go in there with bulldozers and just level the place and get rid of everything. Plus, President Trump talked about there's like 30,000 unexploded bombs in the area. I think that was the figure.
That's not going to be easy to clean out. I know when I went to Berlin in '95, there were still neighborhoods that, you'd be watching the news, and all of a sudden, another bomb went off. And it was because of, when, the Allied forces came in there and bombed the hell out of Berlin and Germany and Hitler.
Oh, sure.
Some of those ordinances were never found. And, they were duds, but they go off.
Our listeners in England will tell you that they're finding, to this day, they find unexploded bombs all
Kids
over.
Find them in playgrounds and get killed. So cleansing the land is going to be terrible.
Bill, just this last summer or the summer before last, in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, they found an unexploded shell. Somebody was out working in their garden or something like that near the battlefield, and they dug it, and all of a sudden there was this unexploded bomb. And do you know it was live? Do you know after 150 years, 160 years, the thing could have exploded and killed the guy?
I used to, when I lived in North Carolina, I used to go to the Outer Banks to, vacation, and rent a condo there, and, you'd be out there on the ocean, you have, and you go to the restaurants, everything. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was called Dolphin Island. There was a beach. And I said, boy, there's a beach and nobody's there. And then I said, ooh, you know what? Well, maybe I'll just go out and do a little metal detecting. Well, I didn't see the sign that was way across the way, and I'm sitting there and and then all of a sudden, all of a sudden, there was, a guy that came up in a state official vehicle, and was yelling at me, and I'm sitting there, headphones on.
Thank God you weren't hitting the sand with the hammer.
Yeah, he was not going to run out there. He's waving. I take it off. He's going, get out of there. There's bombs. I'm going, what? There's bombs. Turned out, I guess during World War II, that's where the ships would sit there and test fire their shells. And there's a lot of duds sitting in there. I'm like going, oh.
I'm glad you didn't bring a shovel. I'm glad you didn't bring a shovel.
There's something down here. Let's dig that out.
Ding, ding, ding. Boy, it sounds like metal. Ding, ding. Oh, geez.
No, I was wondering why there was no development here or anything. No, it's been covered up in the weeds.
I think the interesting part about that story was the guy was standing on the border of the property. He would come no further.
He was just the edge of the road. He's sitting there waving, jumping up and down, trying to get my attention. And I'm just like, what is that idiot doing?
Did you know while you were walking over to him, did you know you were in a live ordnance field, or did you find out only when you got there? Because I would have been a nervous wreck. Oh, did you just saunter over?
I kind of just sauntered over to see what, because he was waving me over. And then I found out, and I was like, I really needed to go back and change my pants afterwards, but that was a whole different thing.
I'm sure you did. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, they you got to be very. I don't know how they're going to move people back into Gaza. If you saw how they were bombing it during the high point of this past war, you know that they're going to have issues. They must have ways nowadays of exploding unexploded ordnance. Maybe it's a mesh heavy net or something that they can vibrate to get it to explode the ordnance, or maybe they just use metal detectors and walk through. I don't know how they do it.
Well, the thing is, the metal detector sends a signal, and that signal, I guess, can trigger, the mechanism in there to come alive and detonate. That's what the worry is. So you would think that there would be. I know that they have, the people that search for meteors. Mm-hmm. They have those. They pull them on a tractor, and it's a big grid thing, but it's basically can penetrate the ground.
Yeah, they're
hundreds of feet,
like LiDAR.
Yeah.
They also have. You know what they have from a lot of the companies have these attachments you put on the front end of a tank that go out about 15 feet, and they have chains on it. Have you seen it? They have chains, and they're big, heavy chains. The chains rotate, and when they rotate, they slap the ground, and they literally will drive this tank over a mine battlefield, and the whole object would be the chains explode the mines, and apparently it works. I don't know whether I'd want to drive that tank, to be honest with you, friends. I mean, I just think it's kind of
You've seen tanks get hit by ordnances.
Yeah,
and
I'd get that tank that would have the chain, that chain contraption that's whipping the ground, and mine would miss the mine.
Well, I'm sure they could do it now with robotics.
Yeah, you would think. You would think they can do a lot with robotics nowadays. Speaking of robotics, it's not the same, but it was interesting. My cohort in crime this morning.
Oh, boy.
Now, this is amazing. All right, this is amazing. He sent me this video. It is one of the most clever 2-minute videos I've seen in a long time. It's a parody on Sherlock Holmes, the Robert Downey movie. It's kind of a parody on that, with Elon Musk playing Sherlock Holmes and Tucker Carlson playing Watson. Now, mind you, neither of those men participated in the making of this movie. It was all EI. And I said to Bill, it had to have been produced over the last 10 days because they're commenting on Doge and stuff like that, things that have happened only within the last 10 days. But the visuals on this were unbelievable. I said to Bill, if they were to shoot that 2.5 minutes, in a studio with real people, it would have cost them millions of dollars for sets, costumes, the whole ball of wax. And I think all they did is they fed the premise, the plot line, the synopsis, into an AI program, and it generated these look-alike characters. They look like Elon Musk and Tucker Carlson, but they don't look exactly like them. They're close enough for government work, but not specific enough to be an exact duplicate, if you know what I mean. And I think that AI does that intentionally. But the point I'm trying to make is, it's hard to believe anything you see nowadays. I mean, this was so good. Bill, if I was thinking, we should post that on our website, a link. Is there any way of doing that? I don't know.
Sure,
maybe
there's always a way to do that.
Well, maybe I was just thinking this might be the kind of thing where we can have people who want to see the video might be able to find it on our website. It was that good, and it was clever. I don't know who did it. Do you know who did it, Bill?
No, I don't. I will credit a gentleman by the name of John Quell, who used to work with me. He actually, I woke up this morning and that was in my messages. So he sent that overnight. John, get a wife. Oh, wait, you got one. Yeah. Oh, get a life. That was what I was trying to say. No, he's a good guy. But he devours the news, and he sent that. So, you'll love this. And I looked at it and said, I got to forward this to Jim, and so I did.
Unbelievable. It was
it's
good choice. Good choice. It was very effective, very creative, and but I first thing I thought of is this is the kind of thing that's going to put movie studios out of business.
Yeah,
because you're not going to need them anymore in the not too distant future. You'll come up with a storyline that you want to see as a movie, and you'll be able to feed it into a computer, and you'll say, "I want to see an hour and a half movie with this, and this in it," and the movie will say, "Give me a second," and it'll spit it out, and it'll be entertaining. Didn't you say that you saw a book that was written by AI, and your friend looked at the book and said, "Boy, this is good."
Well, I wrote the book.
Oh, well, that was the surprising thing about it.
Yeah, I wrote the book. Yeah, really. Anybody that's gotten a text or anything from me, I don't, fat thumbs. I don't check it, and then I go, oh, ooh, man, it looks like a kid wrote that. Well, I've got to.
All of a sudden, you become Ernest Hemingway.
Yeah, I was like going, but I said I got to see if this works. So I fed the idea into it. I think I put about a paragraph, just a synopsis. That was it. And it came out with the story. And I thought, boy, that would be a good story to go through and just kind of tweak it a little bit. And
this is the problem that Hollywood has. And I feel bad for, I love to write. I've been writing screenplays and scripts since the early 70s. And, but the problem I have is I've never been in Hollywood. You really have to be in Hollywood to work your product. It's like anything else. You have to be on site to make it. Some guys, they get a little lucky, but most of the guys who are successful in that business are there. But the point I'm trying to make is they're going to be out of business soon because producers will get up in the morning and say, I think today I want to shoot a movie about a cowboy who goes to Mars and becomes the president. And he'll go in and he'll dictate it to his secretary. And before he has his coffee made, she'll be handing him a script, because of AI.
Yeah, depending what you put into it and what you're asking for is what you get. And they've got it set up for, for movie scripts, novels, how-to books. Let's say that you wanted to write a how-to book, how to make money in 60 days or less. Well, then that tells the idea of the AI to go out and find different, op-eds that tell you how to do this, and then it will sit there and break it down into the chapters that you tell it to do.
And what's amazing, they have unions like the Writers Guild and stuff like that. They're going to be out of business. And I hate to say that, but I mean, it's sort of like if you were in the 1800s, if you were the president of the Blacksmith Guild, I would think that probably you're not doing a lot of business right now because it became obsolete. And as much as they'll hem and haw, it'll be more cost effective for them to, they'll be making the entire movie will be made in a computer. Mm-hmm. You won't have big studios.
Well, what I see here with the AI and the story writing capabilities of it, you still have to have the creative idea, the seed idea, the creativity, the intellectual property. The rest of the story, the filler and everything that goes in the AI does that. There's a lot of commonality in names and filler with a lot of different stories that have been written by people. Mm. And, with the AI, it's going to have some of those commonalities. But if you've got creativity, maybe.
Well, we live in strange times, different times, and I think that AI is... Bill, I worry about AI because it is an incredible gift, but it also can be a danger to our society in general. We embrace it because it does so much, but there may be a point in time when it goes beyond its boundaries. It starts to do more than you want it to do, and that's the thing I worry about. When it starts to realize that it's smarter than all of us, does it need us anymore? And that could be a real possibility in the not too distant future.
AI is in business already. I mean, let me ask you a question. And something goes on, and you need to get a hold of customer service. And a little chat comes on. Hey, can I help you? Well, that's an AI program. and then it gives you options after options. You pick an option, and then it gives you more options. But you can never get to a body. Now, for a while,
Right.
you got to a person that was overseas and had a real hard time speaking English, which insulted me a little bit. Not that they were overseas. It's because it's just that, it's obvious where I'm coming from.
Right.
You need to, I don't need to learn your language. You need to know my language if you're going to be of service to me. But now it's all AI.
You'd call those customer service and that were in the Philippines or wherever, and say, "Who am I speaking with?" And say, "Paul." Yeah, Paul. Yeah, right. But then you're right. They do it because it's cost effective. They're paying pennies on the dollar for this customer support, and now because of technology, the customer support can be halfway around the world, and English can be their second language, and that's what's happening.
I've gotten Dave. He's worked for so many different companies.
Yeah, Dave is
his
amazing.
Voice changes. Yeah,
I've met Dave. Yeah.
You've actually met him. What does he look like?
He looks like he is in another country.
Okay, there you go.
He was vacationing with his family.
Dave, if you're listening, hi.
Yes. Hey, other news around the world. You see where Trump is not on board with the war in the Ukraine anymore, and he really wants to stop it. And instead of the Ukrainians working with Trump and trying to massage it and make the deal work, they've decided to go on the offense. The Ukrainians have. Zelensky has. He goes and speaks in front of the EU, and he kind of mocks Trump. Not a smart move to do, as far as I'm concerned. I think that's kind of a dumb move. I'll tell you what else has happened. This came out, and this hasn't made a lot of news recently, but it should. Ukrainian lawmaker Roman Kostenko, who works as the secretary of the Verkhovna Rada's committee, whatever that is, on national security, defense, and intelligence, told reporters on Thursday that the U.S. weapon sales and deliveries to the Ukraine have been halted.
Too bad.
Have been stopped. Now, nobody's talking about that, but that is a big, big deal.
Go ahead.
I was going to also point out, staying in the Ukraine, we talk about why is it that Volodymyr Zelensky doesn't want to get out of leave office. He wants to stay there. It's because
he won't win.
His polls are in the dumper. His polls are about as bad. It says here, Newsweek magazine had a poll. Zaluzhny is the guy. General Zaluzhny is the guy who they put up against Zelensky. He has more than double of Zelensky's vote preferences, 65 to 30. 65% of the people will go with the General Zaluzhny, and the other 30% will go with Zelensky. He knows that his competition is more than twice as popular as Zelensky is. He doesn't want that. I mean, the guy has closed down the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. That's the big church in Ukraine. And this guy, Zelensky, closed it down and locked up some of the priests and bishops. Not the sign of a what do they call him? The Churchill of our time? They call Zelensky the Churchill of our time. This picture is this. I saw it on TV just yesterday, or the day before yesterday, of our Congress having a joint session with Zelensky on the big screen in this joint session, and they were standing up and applauding him like he was George Washington. And I was thinking, you fools. You absolute fools. This, we're giving them $350 billion worth of our taxpayer money, and you applaud him like he's doing you a favor. This is why the people have had enough. That's why Trump is president. That's why he's kicking butt and taking names, as they would say.
His whole presidency is a sham. It's a joke. It's probably the biggest joke he's ever told and performed.
Zelensky.
Yeah. His whole administration, he's a joke. Best joke he's ever done. The longest lasting.
Bill, why does a guy like Zelensky have a mansion in Florida? And where does
because he's stolen money that was given to his country to fight a war.
Yeah, and where does I was going to say a half-baked comedian from Ukraine get that kind of money in the first place?
But there's stories of people from the Ukraine, fleeing across the border.
Oh, yes.
With suitcases of money. His wife bought what's that car? Bugatti or whatever it's called.
Lamborghini?
No, not a Lamborghini.
Oh, Bugatti.
Bugatti. Yeah. Like a $500,000 car that should be ready here in about a month or two. That will be delivered to her European home, and of course they got a home in Florida. They got more than one house.
They stopped a government official's wife going into Hungary, I guess it was. They opened up her luggage, and it was a suitcase filled with money.
Yeah,
well over $1 million in money. I don't know. She's just bringing the family savings across the state lines. I don't know. But they say, Bill, the biggest new population in Switzerland, rich population in Switzerland, are the Ukrainians. So,
well, I would believe that. And if you follow the money that we have given to the Ukraine, it didn't go to all the military hardware. There have been a lot of people there and statewide, and maybe in Congress, maybe in the Senate, that have gotten their pockets filled too.
Well, yeah, they say that we send over money to the Ukraine. It's like a circle, we get it, we send it to the Ukraine, and then somehow a large chunk of that money makes its way back to Washington.
I'll approve that bill, but I get a commission on that.
Yep. Well,
so everybody gets a piece of the pie.
We are in strange times. Unfortunately, I think that we have an administration now that's going to uncover, much to the chagrin of many of the politicians who are currently residing in Washington. I think you're going to find, here's the problem, Bill. When Trump starts to take names, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to start saying he's coming after us. He's attacking us for no reason. We're innocent just because we were political adversaries. He's coming after us. I'm saying, hey, knock yourself out. I think Trump won't go after anybody unless he has rock solid evidence, and I think he has it.
Well, they targeted Trump for no reason at all. That is evident. That is proof. So let's get that off the table. And if Trump is targeting you and he's got evidence, what's your gripe? You're guilty. You did something you weren't supposed to do. You have something you're not supposed to have. Whatever it is, you're guilty. And if you're not guilty, well, we'll find that out.
I got a question for you. What happens if we find out that half of the Senate is guilty? What happens to our country?
That's a good question.
I personally, I think you've got to go. Nobody is above the. We heard this mantra over and over again when they were trying to go after Trump for no good reason. Nobody is above the law. Using that same statement as the baseline, shouldn't it be the same thing when the shoe is on the other foot? Nobody's above the law. Everybody who's guilty should go to jail.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see. We got federal judges. They can run the country. Apparently, they think that they are the ultimate power. What was that judge, Amir Ali or something like that, who slapped down the thing saying, you know what, that blanket freeze that you got out there on foreign aid, I'm going to lift that. And you had until the 13th of February to lift it.
Yeah.
Which Trump hasn't lifted it. So he gave him a judicial slap on the wrist. All right. So what else you got, Judge? What are you going to do? Let's see what power you really, really have. Because if you do, then that means we don't need the Senate. We don't need the Congress. We don't need a president. Hell, we got unelected appointed judges to
I think that's
tell us what to do.
Again, I think the Supreme Court is going to step in and say, you have boundaries, judges, and you are overstepping them. You see where a federal judge on Thursday delivered a major blow to the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops denying their attempt to force the Trump administration into continuing taxpayer funding for their massive refugee resettlement operation. They were trying to get the government to continue to pay for their efforts to support the illegal aliens who were coming into this country. They were sheltering them, and then they were distributing them around the country, making their illegal efforts easier. And they wanted us to pay for it. They were violating our laws, and they wanted us to pay for it. So finally, some judge, his name was Trevor McFadden, he was a Trump appointee. The only one of these federal judges with any common sense, it would appear. Although I do have to, I was pleasantly surprised by Chutkan in Washington, who was a liberal who actually stood by the Trump administration a couple of days ago, which was a step in the right direction. Every day is interesting with this administration. Every day. Bill, what are your thoughts on the $5,000 gift that they're talking about? Do you think it's a good thing to give it to every taxpayer, or do you think we should, for example, put it into paying off our debt? Or do you think some people think the idea should be that we take that money and distribute it amongst our homeless veterans, get them places to stay, housing, and support to make their lives a little better? But then the other faction says, well, wait a second. A lot of families need $5,000. It's a stimulus that they need. Maybe they're having a hard time paying college loans. Maybe they need to get a new car. Maybe they're behind in their credit cards or their mortgage payments or whatever. This would be something that would help right the country and make the country breathe a little easier.
Well, I think there's a lot of steps there. I think the people deserve it. We paid in for it. We were misled. We were wrong. So it's a form of restitution, number one, and it's a helpful one. As far as the homeless and the veterans, the money that is being saved, we can allocate forward some savings that have been squandered and turn around and say, okay, we will help these people with the savings going forward that we have done. Because it will never even come close to equaling one of the things that they have,
What Trump and Musk said was that 20% would be the money they would, 20% of the $1 trillion+ they find, Doge fines, would be allocated for the payback to the taxpayers. But that means there's 80% left, and I would think that you could take another 10% of that at least and allocate that to the veterans. You don't need to just have everything come out of that 20% that's going to the taxpayer.
Well, let me, are veteran taxpayers?
Absolutely. Well, not all of them. They've paid in other ways, too. No, a veteran has paid in a lot of other ways. Historically, they've been, we put them in the front of the line when it comes to the battles go, but we put them in the back of the line when it comes to priorities in our country. And I think that has got to stop now. We've got to look at the people who put their lives on the line. Many of them were injured, and I see on television, and I think these are wonderful organizations. I think these Tunnel for Towers, Wounded Warriors, these are great organizations doing God's work. They're getting the support that a lot of these people need. But why isn't our VA doing this? Doing it just like these organizations? Why isn't the VA being the tip of the spear when it comes to support and aid to our injured veterans?
Because we've always been told there's not enough money to go around, and everything costs so much, and so they need the help of the American people. What Doge is doing is saying there is enough money, but they're wasting it, they're squandering it, they're taking it for their own purposes and well-being. And we've got, to be honest with you, Doge has got 30 days, and that clock is ticking.
Yeah.
And what they get done in that amount of time is going to be monumental, but it's not going to be all of it.
Well,
it's not going to be all of it. It's, to me, in my mind, Doge is going to have to sit there at the end and say, here's what we've done, and this is what we've got back.
Yeah.
And people have got to go, that's great. And they got to go, there's more. How much more? How much more time would it take to do it? You don't want this to be a 4-year program. But the 30-day program, I don't see. 6 months, 8 months, I do see that, because it's obvious that there is a lot of corruption that's going on.
Well, this is going to be, we're only at the beginning. We just are starting the second month of this administration. It seems like he's been in office forever. He's done more than Biden did in 4 years by a long shot. Heck, he did more than Biden did in his term of office. Trump did it in the first 10 days. But there are a lot of leftist people out there still not paying attention, who don't like Trump no matter what. I see it I go to social media and I see these. Some of them are friends of mine, and they're still friends of mine. They may not like my politics, but that's their right. I don't like theirs. I think they're making a terrible mistake. They're not paying attention to really what's going on. They're looking at the superficial and not digging deep. But that's just my opinion. Maybe as time progresses over the next 4 years, they'll wake up and realize that maybe something good happened to our country during this last election. Only time will tell. Hey, I got to take a pause here to tell you once again about Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee. It's available at rightsideshop.com, rightsideshop.com. It's a delicious blend of the finest coffee beans, and it's a medium blend roast, a medium decaf blend roast, too, if you can't have the caffeine. But, if you have a blood pressure problem or something like that, and caffeine is a no-no, we got you covered. We got the decaf version of Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee available at rightsideshop.com, rightsideshop.com. Easy to remember, rightsideshop.com, or go to it'sanotherday.com. Our homepage is a button there. You press on it, and it'll take you to Right Side Shop, and you can see it there along with some of our other goodies and knickknacks and things like that. And it'll be the kind of thing you'll want to make it a regular part of your groceries because it's a delicious coffee. And also, it's the only coffee in the world that employs Juan Jose and the Border Crossers.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
There they go. They're always so happy after they finish singing that song. They feel like they've accomplished something. They're the reason for being, in this country. They've done their thing. Although I do worry about how long they're going to be here. Every time we do a story on Tom Homan, they hide. I don't know why they do that, but they do. Anyway, and by the way, the border crossings are down to the lowest in years. I mean, it's like
it's interesting because they talk about numbers and everything, but these are the lowest ever for every entirely. Now, there's another number that's low too, because they were going, there's been 35 air traffic happenstances since Trump got in. He's terrible. The first month of President Biden's administration, he had 50, or was it 75?
No, I think it was 57. I think
57.
Yeah, I know. They're trying to make Trump the demon. Heck, they tried to blame Trump on the accident in D.C., and Sean Duffy, his transportation secretary, was just sworn in that day.
Yeah.
It's like
the Democrats are stupid, because if anything, they ought to sit there and be saying, since Joe took office and then to now, it's gone down. Now, I don't know that that's going to hold true, but those two numbers are different, and they could sit there and build just the reverse claim, but see, it wouldn't be attacking Trump. And that's
I
what
have
they
to tell you,
want
though,
do.
Bill, you look at the Democratic cast of characters, Schumer, Schiff, Pelosi, Warren up in Massachusetts. You look at Blumenthal in Connecticut. You look at these people, White House in Rhode Island, and it looks like, if you put them all together, you'd be hard pressed to find a decent IQ. I mean, these are numbskulls, but they're used to playing a political game that they've been able to pass off as being a plan of opportunity, and some people have believed it, but it hasn't been the case. You just look around, and you know what else, Bill? You look around at some of these good businesses and branches of state governments and stuff like that are having a difficult time right now because, a lot of the money that goes to these local state divisions have been put on pause while the federal government figures out what's going where and why. And these little divisions they hurt. They're suffering, and I feel terrible for them. I really do, and I think Trump is going to rectify it. I hope he rectifies it, but the problem is they built their whole business plan on federal funds, basically, and if the federal funds go south, they're stuck. And I think that they've got to look elsewhere. They got to do something. Maybe I'm wrong, but they got to look somewhere other than to the federal government for their support. Do you know what I'm saying? But I see this a lot from talking to people in that sector who are they're having a hard time because the government has put a hiatus on government funding to state operations. Anyway, we could go on and on. Hey, listen, is there anything else you want to add before we wrap this up?
No, not really, because that would be another show that we have to do, so we don't have that kind of time.
Yeah, actually, all of a sudden our line between you and me is starting to go south. So this is, I think, an appropriate time to wind things up before the gremlins that work in our technical department pull the plug on us,
Yeah, well, it's the weather. I think the weather has a lot to do with it because no matter what you do, it's signals going across the airwaves or lines or a combination thereof. And I'm looking at a temperature of 1 right now. I'm looking right at it. It says 1 degree. So, and I don't believe that's right, but if that's true, it'd be cold outside.
So before you race out of here, I put a heavy coat on, some mittens and a scarf before you say that classic line.
Yeah, well, I can't do it with this teeth chattering because I just...
Yes, I hear it.
Hasta la vista, baby. We're out of here.
This is CRN America.